What's up, everybody? My name is David. I'm your host of Highway to Health Podcast. And if you've tuned in before, you know this podcast is meant to celebrate the people that are doing amazing things, that are committed to improving, the access to care, the experience while getting care, and then the outcomes for our patients. But we have a special episode for you today. Today's conversation is going to be focused on resilience, positive mindset, and overcoming challenges. Instead of looking at things like obstacles, we're going to look at them like an opportunity to adapt. And we have incredible guests on our show today. Jonathan Snyder, who's the executive director of the USAGA, and Bruce Pulver, healthcare executive, inspirational leader, author, podcaster. And we're going to get into what y'all are doing in Dallas, the amazing work that you're doing with the USAGA. And I hope our listeners get to learn something from y'all, because I have, just leading up to this show and doing a little bit of research. So I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So Jonathan, I want to start with you. Tell us about the USAGA. First of all, what does it mean? Why did it bring you to Dallas?
The USAGA, the acronym, stands for the United States Adaptive Golf Alliance, and it's comprised currently of 50 member organizations that all focus on teach, play, and compete in adaptive golf. And we're here in Dallas this week because the Texas Adaptive Golf Association has partnered up with the Texas Golf Association for the Texas Adaptive Golf Championship.
Awesome.
But the USAGA has many partners here in the Dallas area, Arcus Golf, Dana Dempsey from Scottish Rite Hospital, and her Learn to Golf program, Solo Rider Golf Cars, and Adaptive Golf Devices are right here in Texas. Okay. So very, very large adaptive golf community here in the Dallas area.
Well, good. Well, we're glad to have you here. How did y'all's paths cross?
We met 4 years ago, and we both became part of a men's fellowship group that had to happen through Zoom. Okay. So I'm in Atlanta. Jonathan's in Chicago, and we joined this group called In His Group Ministries. And ever since that first night, we kind of hit it off about golf, about life, about our faith. And it just, over time, became a tighter relationship and friendship through those events. And he came to play at a tournament similar to what we're doing here in Atlanta, and he said, I'm coming in town. I never met him. We just met through Zoom, right? Like a lot of these relationships that we all have.
Been there.
And he said, would you come out and watch me play? And so his wife,
we had never met in person, but we had known each other and spent in fellowship for about 2.5 years.
Right. Another tournament, his wife couldn't come, and he said, would you consider caddying for me? So we did that in Atlanta, and then we did one in Sea Island, Georgia, which was the Georgia State Adaptive Golf Championship. And then he said, hey, how about Dallas? And I said, if I can make it, I'm in. So never miss an opportunity to spend time with my friend and brother, Jonathan.
Well, glad y'all are here. And we would be missing out on an opportunity if we didn't say thank you to the Dallas Cowboys Club. Great venue, awesome place for us to record, and I'm glad we got to meet here. We want to thank the Cowboys Club for having us.
Absolutely.
I did a little bit of research reading up on your childhood, and you were born with an adaptation and went through some challenges as a kid. I'd like you to share a little bit about your journey as a young athlete, as a young man, and how that's turned you into, this awesome person that you are today, and has given you the opportunity to be an inspiration to people that, might be going through some things themselves.
Well, yeah, I mean, growing up, I guess I didn't really look at this as a disability, right? My father also didn't. We very much so utilize sport to overcome things.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a basketball in my hand since the time I could remember, right? So I always utilized sport. That definitely was always overlooked until I had a chance to show everybody what I could do, whether it was on a basketball court, baseball. I ran track in high school, which was pretty special. But definitely overlooked, picked on quite a bit.
Yeah.
But just always let my ability overshine the quote-unquote disability.
Yeah.
I don't know where that mindset came from. I think just the joy of sport, and my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I mean, that's really who I have to attribute everything to. My father definitely sent me down the right path and guided me, but my Father in heaven is the path that I like to walk on these days. And I challenge anyone that's having challenges in their life to lean on the Lord as their strength.
Well said, and I'd agree with that. Your earthly father didn't sound like a guy that would put up with many excuses. So I'm sure he, if you're like me, it was do it anyways. Find a way. That's how my parents kind of raised me. Now with my 4 kids, that's kind of how I'm trying to raise them. There's a lot of excuses. How big of a role did your parents play in making sure that you had the right mindset and that you didn't see anything as a disability, you saw it as an opportunity?
We always figured out a way, right? Even from the time when it was, I remember when I was going to school, I think it was kindergarten, and I knew we were going to learn to tie shoes that day because they told everybody, make sure you wear shoes with laces. And here I am. I always wore the Velcro strap shoes, something easy for me, right? My dad says, hey, we'll figure it out. We said, let's work on it. So we worked on it that night. I felt like I was one of the top performers in the class. And then that's the mindset, right?
Right.
We'll figure out a way. There's so many different ways to get things done, right? Whatever your goal is that you want to try and accomplish. There's many different routes, and each individual person has a different route, right? It's not all going to be the same.
Yeah.
But the most important thing whenever you're adapting something is just know that you can figure it out.
Bruce, you and I have known each other for a while. And I've always been inspired with your positive mindset. You could talk to anybody in revenue cycle today and ask them, what do you think about Bruce? And they'll always say, great guy, always positive, and warm-hearted, all these things. But that's hard we work in healthcare. It's not always easy. Somehow you've maintained this positive attitude, this positive mindset, this growth mindset for a long time. I've always admired that. What's built that into a habit for you?
Yeah, well, first, you know why I like hanging around this guy because of that. Yeah. So mine started really early in life. I have a medical story in my background. The day I was born, for any of the art revenue cycle folks out or any clinical folks out there will understand this, my mother had a dissecting aortic aneurysm during labor with me. Bottom line is she should have died, and so should have I. No one had survived longer than 72 hours on record before that had happened. Well, there were 2 surgeons who were visiting Tulane University at Yale New Haven Medical Center, just happened to be visiting, thank you, Lord, who had just perfected some procedures in valve replacement. Called them over, they took care of getting me out, and she jumped into a battle of 60 days to fight for her life, undergoing 3 experimental surgeries that had never been done before. So I say that because I was raised in a family of gratitude. He had to figure out a way, upbringing. I had everything's going to be okay. Just be positive and be grateful for everything you have. And, I didn't really know that was a thing. Like, I just thought everybody was that way until, some things in my life occurred where it was a job setback or a relationship ending or that sort of thing where I drew on that gratitude my mom had that everything's going to work out okay. You just got to find it and believe it's going to happen. And that also was part of faith and part of my upbringing. My father just loved words, and he was always figuring out a way to look at something and figure it out in a sort of a literary way that it would make sense. An example, which I've kind of can kind of bring into what I mean by that, is you can look at the word bound, and you could think you are tied up, restricted, mummified, right? That's where we go to often the first time.
Yeah, that's your default.
Or you can say, I'm bound and determined. It's the same word. It's just how do we look at it? And it's a mental thing that we get to choose. So we have to, but we get to decide. But we have to make the conscious decision that we're going to look at things a certain way. There is an outcome. We will figure it out. And that's, like I said, why we ham and egg it or our brother-in-law on the golf course together.
So we get through 18 holes.
That's right. Yeah.
On the golf course, how is this relationship on 18, throughout 18 holes? Because as an athlete, there's some times when you've got to get mad at yourself, and you've got to be tough on yourself, and that kind of thing. I'm familiar with that. So how do you communicate with him to bring him back to a level of, this calm level that he can play the most effectively at?
And we constantly work on that. One thing that comes to mind immediately is, again, I'm kind of the word guy, is the word silent and the word listen have the same letters. So it's my job to kind of be a Sherpa, to help him get where he wants to be. And oftentimes it's by not saying anything. It's letting him let it out, what do you think, what does it look like here? What do you think? And if I've got nothing to contradict what he's thinking, there's really nothing to say. We were playing down at Sea Island. I'll share the story if you don't mind. May I?
Yeah.
We're on par 3. He shoots the number, the yardage, and he goes, "What do you think about a pitching wedge?" And I said, "Be confident."
We had a choice. It was pitching wedge or 9.
He could finish the story. It was pitching wedge or 9. He said, "What do you think of the pitching wedge?" I said, "Be confident." Stood up, hit the ball. There was about 40 feet from where the ball hit and where the flag was, and we watched it roll right in the hole. Be confident. So my role is to, and I'm learning this, right? I mean, I'm not an expert at it, but I'm trying to take, the positivity, the possibility thinking, and listening at the times that are right, and just try to guide my player and my friend to execute the best he can. And it doesn't matter what the outcome is, because if you're focused on the outcome, that blows up. Just focus on being confident, being in the moment, or being calm, which to me is catch a little moment.
I was always result-driven. I coached college basketball for a while, and what I enjoyed about it was there's a scoreboard, and it's obvious to everybody who won and who didn't. And, the process there is recruit the right players, coach them hard, make sure they do well in school, and typically the result is what you want it to be, and I enjoyed that. When you get into sales and when you get into the business world, it's a lot harder. There's not a scoreboard, technically. And so you have to find joy in the process, but also understand that when things go poorly, it's not a failure. It's an opportunity to learn, to grow. And if you look at it that way, you never fail. You continue to grow and improve.
You said an interesting word there that I'll come back to. So describing the way that we play golf together, I would describe it as strategic, methodical, precise, and then I'm going to come back to that word you said, enjoy, right? Now, are we enjoying or are we in joy, right? So there's your mindset right there. Are we enjoying playing golf? And how do you enjoy playing golf? You do it in joy.
That's
so That's really describes how we try and go about it. Okay, the results are going to be the results. Some are going to be great. Some are going to be phenomenal, hole in one. Some are not going to be what we want.
It was almost like God had put you in a place and put you through some experiences where you had an opportunity to take those experiences that were hard on you early on and be a guide for your dad. Tell me about that experience.
And it still transitions to today and what I do. So I was 17 years old. I was all set to go off to college, and my father had a chop saw accident where he lost 4 fingers on his left hand. Ended up being very similar to me, right? But I ended up not going to college and beginning to run our family business until he could get back in the swing of things, so to speak. And it just brought us closer together. He would ask me all kinds of stuff. Hey, man, how do you button your buttons with one hand? Hey, remember how I taught you how to tie your shoe? Come on, now you got to teach me. But, I mean, he still had his thumb and still had ended up going through physical therapy and having good use. And a few years later, I mean, he had a paintbrush back in his hand. He was back on the ladder, back, in the things, and the company was going really well, and that's when he asked me, well, what do you want to do now? And if we happen to be driving by a golf course that they were building, and I said, I don't know, maybe I'll run that golf course one day. 5 years later, I was the general manager of that
Really?
$22 million golf course.
That's incredible.
And that goes to speaking things into existence, you know. The Lord tells us to ask.
Yeah.
And then
Boldly.
you just have to keep seeking and walking on his path, and you'll get there. I started working at that golf course for $0 and 00 cents. I was washing carts to play a little free golf.
Really?
And I worked every single position to get into the pro shop, became the assistant golf professional, then worked every position there up until general manager, from director of golf to head golf professional, event coordinator.
What an experience. Were you as hard on your dad as he was on you? Or did you give him some grace?
I gave him a lot of grace. I love my dad so much, man. And I'm one of 7. You know, I'm the oldest boy of 4 boys, and he's got 3 daughters. I have 1 older sister. So of the 7 of us, after all that, you know, he definitely deserved a lot of grace. So.
He had put his time in.
Yeah, 100%.
Bruce, you've got a way about you, man, and it's something that I aspire to. Tell our listeners, you know, there's the people that listen to this podcast. They come from all walks of life, but a lot of them are, you know, they might have a hard time relating to the athletic side of things. They've been in a career for 20, 30 years now. How is this applied positively? You know, how is this applied logically in your daily life? You know, somebody's out there dealing with self-doubt. You know, there's a number of things that are putting pressure on our listeners. The economy, there's, you know, nobody knows what the election is going to be. Nobody knows what, you know, there's just a lot of external pressures. And I feel like you've done such a great job of handling that with grace and handling it with, you know, seemingly easily. What advice would you give somebody out there that was struggling today with self-doubt or any other stress?
Well, first of all, acknowledge it. It's there, right? I'm a mouse in my own lab. Thank you for your comments and compliments, but I work on this because I have to. I could be, you know, and I think it's a choice that we learn how to make that decision. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think that's really important. We get to choose, not every situation we're in, but we do get to choose, kind of like my mom did, to go through the fight or to give up. Yeah. I think that's where it came from for me. And it does take a commitment. And it takes, I believe, being incremental, like celebrating little successes. Okay. You know, you might have lipped out the putt from 40 feet, but it's a tap in. Instead of going, oh no, why didn't I make that? Right. From a golf analogy perspective. So I think looking for reasons to be okay with the performance today, not the outcome. We talk a lot about this on the golf course, and for me it's faith as well. It's not what I'm playing for, it's who I'm playing for. I'm playing for a greater, I want to leave this planet better than I arrived. And with that means it's not always about scoring the winning touchdown. It's not always about, you know, being on the leaderboard or winning. Sometimes it's helping someone else get to where they want to be. And I think, especially if we're struggling with some things, whether it's you know, emotionally or financially or whatever, I think if we can make service part of the solution, it's amazing how our internal mechanism works when we're looking for ways to serve others, even if it's in a little way. Hold the door, you know, or pay for the coffee for the person behind you. Whatever that thing is, it's hard to live with gratitude and the downside at the same time. So if you choose gratitude, it becomes a long enough time, it becomes a habit. Yeah. But if you do things for even longer, it changes from what you do, habit, to lifestyle, which is who you are. Mm. And so I would say stick with incrementally where you want to get, and it's going to be hard, but it's worth it. And the journey, finding joy in the journey or living in joy, is where I just try to find it. Because if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to make it. It's just a thing that I'm addicted to, finding a way to be positive and think about possibilities versus being positive. What can we do?
I like that. I heard something the other day. They were talking about depression, and they were talking about how those that are inward thinking, have an inward perspective, have a higher probability of being clinically depressed. And the best advice that this person would give is to put others first and have an outward perspective. And if you put your attention, your focus on helping others, it's amazing how much you learn about yourself and how great of a blessing that you have in everything, that we've been given. You both have put others first throughout your careers and your habits. Talk about what you're doing for those that are looking to get in the game of golf, but have a physical challenge, have something that might traditionally have held them back. What is the U.S. AGA doing to offer accessibility to this awesome game?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's really all of our wonderful member organizations that provide these opportunities, like Bruce said, for these individuals to get out on the driving range and put a golf club in their hands. Some folks may not have ever played the game before, but I guarantee you when they hit the sweet spot for that first time, or they make that long putt, that they'll be hooked. Golf is a very therapeutic game when it comes down to it. A lot of individuals, their doctors recommend it to them.
Really?
Hey, go hit some balls on the range. Be active, get out and move your body. Yeah. So yeah, I if they're interested in getting involved, go to my website, send me an email. Anywhere you are in the country, I will find you a place for you to be included. Because that's really what we're focused on, is the inclusion of individuals with disabilities in the game of golf.
Yeah. It took me too long to realize how great of a game golf was. I wish I played it when I was younger. I was too obsessed with basketball. But the more you learn about it, the more you play it, the more you love it. And so I encourage everybody to take you up on that offer.
A great friend of ours by the name of Dave Windsor, he calls it divot therapy.
That's right.
If you can provide a little bit of divot therapy to someone, have a great conversation with them, find out what's going on in their mind and in their heart, both of you will leave happier people at the end of that meeting.
So true.
I agree with that. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah, so my book's called Above the Chatter, Our Words Matter. It's a collection of writing that I did every day for 422 consecutive mornings. I wrote a single word. I wrote the word vertically. The first one was the word strong. It was after a business setback, a major business setback. I woke up and I said, Bruce, you got to be strong. What does that mean? Took the paper by the bed and wrote, stand tall, remain optimistic, now go for it. And I just started writing them and sharing them out with some friends, and it was really never intended to be anything but a journal or share some stuff with my kids or a legacy thing for them, a 3-ring binder, whatever. Yeah. And we'll kind of tie it back to the medical aspect. There's a dear friend of mine who's a pediatric heart surgeon. So he works on hearts of babies that are, 7 days old or less. And he called me one night and he said, I needed that word you texted me today. And I said, well, tell me the story. I didn't even remember what the word was. And he said, well, there were 6 of us scrubbing for a open heart surgery for a 7-day-old baby, the heart the size of a walnut. And he said, we're in there scrubbing, and there were 10 possible things that we would find when we got in there. We had all the imaging, we had all the, all the diagnostics and everything, but still, once you get in, everything's different, he said.
Right.
And with those 10 things, there could have been 10 possible combinations to solve the problem. So here you've got these, intelligent, educated, trained specialists scrubbing, and he said it was kind of tense. My phone went off. My scrub nurse pulled out my phone, said, who is it? It's a text from Bruce. He goes, read it. And he said, you sent me the word calm.
Wow.
Catch a little moment. He said, we stepped back, we kind of exhaled, and they went in and did the 9-hour surgery. And so when it got to that point, and I realized that what I was writing was impacting other people more than just me, then I had to step out and say, we need to do something with this. So we worked on the book, and it's a collection of those written into chapters. And the idea there is if there's one word that can impact someone and help them through their day. And then I do workshops and keynotes, and I encourage folks. I go through some exercises and how folks can do this themselves, and sort of start thinking about that script that we speak to ourselves. Because on the golf course, in the boardroom, as a parent, shooting foul shots, where in band directors, wherever that is, the words we say to ourselves are, I think, more important than the ones we say out loud, because that's the internal script.
100%. And I see it with my kids. especially my boys, you can see when they have confidence and when they don't. And it might be something I give to them. At 10 and 13 years old, it's something that they need to start building those habits so they become who they want to be.
One of my favorite phrases that we worked with on our kids, so my daughter played volleyball in high school, and my youngest daughter played soccer, then went on to play in college, so they were around sports and trying new things, right? You had to. If you wanted to get to the next level, you had to be willing. So we came up with a 3-word sentence, which is, yes, I can. And yes, I can means you expect success in challenging activities now. It doesn't mean you're going to win. It doesn't mean you're going to blow that number out if that's your quota. But if you step into a challenging activity and you say, yes, I can figure this out. We'll figure out how to tie the shoelaces. We'll figure out how to manage the territory. We'll figure out how to, work with the limited staffing we have in our rev cycle department. We'll figure out the new implementation of the technology. You're setting yourself on a path. You're going to have more success.
Yep, I agree. That's the truth of the growth mindset. Last thing. If our listeners walked away understanding one thing, Jonathan, if they remember one thing from this conversation, what would you want it to be?
Jesus is Lord, and follow Jesus.
Yeah.
If they want to take one thing away from meeting me, that's what I'd like people to take away.
Thanks for your courage saying that. Appreciate it.
I'd echo that with maybe a challenge of responsibility, and that is that we all have gifts, and I call them God-installed features to share. And it's our responsibility, whether it's in your business, in your personal life, in anything, to find those, hone them, and just plug into them, and then give them away. And that's where I think our Lord and Savior is able to be in more places when we look to take the gifts that He's given us and just do everything we can with them, regardless of the outcome. All not for us, but all for Him.
Yep. Putting others first, and then understanding that you might be the only reflection of Him they ever experience. And so we have a big responsibility. Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to see how it turns out. Appreciate you guys being here. Get some rest. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.